Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Cedric, do we have a full house yet? Abdi?
Yeah, almost. Maybe we can
Almost.
give, yeah,
Good.
I think one
can
more.
give maybe what, additional minutes for
Excellent.
other people to, yeah.
Perfect. Sounds good. Welcome, colleagues. I see a lot of familiar faces. A lot of the colleagues from the WHO country offices, from the regional office as well. We'll start in about a minute, just to make sure we have a quorum. We can start, colleagues. Good morning, good afternoon to you all. Welcome to the second clinic of the Pandemic Fund Proposal Development Stage. My name is Aya Ahmed. I'm an External Relations and Partnership Officer based here at the WHO Afro Regional Office in Brazzaville. We have a wide audience on the call today, very diverse from different areas and spheres of influence. And of course, you know, with a diverse audience on the call, which is super fantastic, there's always a big crowd and a bit of virtual traffic for us. So just a few ground rules to help us all stay on track and to make sure that everyone is on the same page and to make sure that we gain the most from this discussion. First of all, to make sure that we cater to all your diverse languages, we have interpretation online in French, English, and Portuguese. So just make sure there's a few buttons at the bottom of the tab that you can press on and choose the language of your choice. Secondly, please make sure your mics are muted, just so that we minimize any form of disruptions. You can choose to put your camera on or off, it's up to you. And also we would like to know where you're from. So please rename your given names and the organization or the country or the different entity that you're representing on the call today. Also, please make use of the chat box for your different Q&As. We will make sure to give you the visibility on all the questions and the inquiries that you have. And I will be personally making sure that a lot of your questions are being answered. Also, please make sure to raise your hand if you have any questions, again, to minimize any disruptions. And the fact that you're on this call, you have all accepted and given consent as the call will be recorded today. So thank you very much. And I wish you the best, and I wish that you all gain the objective of this call. And I kindly pass it over to my wonderful colleague, Andrea. Over to you, Andrea.
Thank you very much, Aya. Good morning, good afternoon, colleagues and partners. We are pleased to welcome you to this second session of the clinics for the development of pandemic fund proposal. I just wanted to ask the opportunity, if possible, to be made host. I just wanted to share quickly my screen in the meanwhile. At the same time, I wanted to welcome all the colleagues from WHO and different partners. I see colleagues from organization, from our country offices, from Ministry of Health, from NGOs, and other implementing entities that are part of this big team that is really making an effort to apply to the third call for proposal of the pandemic fund. So, as you can see, I just wanted to quickly share my screen. We are at the moment 1 month and a half, I would say 1 month and 3 weeks from the deadline of the pandemic fund. So I hope you can see the slide that we are projecting. This is the timeline that we have shared during the last clinic. It's today, 17th of April. And this is really when we are starting, all of us, to input our proposal inside the platform of the pandemic fund. And we remind you that it's important to start planning your consultations at country level in order to be able to, during the month of May, to finalize those and share with us the proposal that you are developing in order for us to be able to give you a review. So the deadline for single and multi-country proposal is 6th of May. And as we are approaching it, I just wanted you to have a reminder of the key dates that we have highlighted for you during this process. Now, I also wanted to share with you where we are with the clinics. I hope you can all see the timeline of the clinics now currently projected. So last week, on 10th of April, we covered the session 1, which was really like, the first part of the application platform, where we have covered, thanks to Abdi, Cedric, we have covered like key aspects such as the proposal objectives, but even logging into the platform and all this. I hope by now you all have created your profile on the platform of the pandemic fund. And I have to say, we have not seen a lot of applications yet being created. So please, if you have created, remember to put myself, Cedric, and Abdi as the co-owner of the proposal, as the co-writer, so that we can, during this process, we can log in easily in the platform and help you in finalizing this, in finalizing your application. So if you haven't done so, please do it. We are monitoring. There are only like a couple of countries who have like created for now the application form online. So let me conclude by saying today is 17th of April. I have highlighted the session we are. That's the second of 6 sessions that we are conducting. And today is going to focus on context, the needs, and alignment to national and regional priorities. We're going to see how this is unpacked in terms of, for example, the GE, NAFs, and other important, background documents of your application. So having said so, once again, I see over 100 people connected. So I would stop here, welcome you again, so we can dive into the conversation. We'll remain online to see if there are any relevant questions that we can address as a group, and pass back the floor to Cedric to have a small recap from the previous session before we dive into the current one. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Andrea, for this introduction and, like I would say, recap also. But I will try to let me share my screen. Okay. I hope you can see my screen now. Yeah.
Yes.
So yeah, I wanted to quickly go through the application document. We have been able to see this last a week ago, so last Thursday, and we share some key links. I can see that Abdi has already shared the link on the chat. We know we have key application document on this page where we can retrieve all relevant links. Alors, comme on a beaucoup de francophones, je vais basculer en français pour faciliter également la compréhension de tous. Et n'oubliez pas qu'il y a la traduction à côté. Donc, nous avons pu voir dans ce lien que nous avons tous les sous-liens par rapport à l'application, à la soumission, notamment les guidelines qui sont proposés. Et le premier lien c'est toujours l'application portal, donc le site d'application qui a été partagé par Abdurrahman il y a quelques instants. L'idée ici, c'est de pouvoir s'enregistrer rapidement et de créer une application. Ici, vous voyez, j'en ai 3 parce que j'ai été invité à réviser quelques-unes. Donc, pour commencer, disons que je ne suis pas enregistré. Je m'enregistre quand j'arrive à cette page que vous avez. Je m'enregistre en haut à droite et cela me permettra d'avoir voilà, c'est un formulaire instrument pour un compte. Et la dernière fois, nous avons fait la différence claire entre un compte d'application et la création même de la soumission, ce qui présente 2 étapes. Donc, une fois que j'ai créé mon compte, je pourrai me connecter chaque fois que je reviens sur la plateforme, comme c'est le cas là. Et donc, c'est une adresse email et un mot de passe. Une fois que je me connecte, je retombe sur la plateforme initiale qui me permet de voir toutes les applications que j'ai eu à soumettre. Nous avons souligné la dernière fois qu'on peut conserver le même compte que si on l'a utilisé l'année dernière. Vous voyez là, j'ai 2 applications du rang 2. Donc, on peut utiliser le même compte pour plusieurs applications. Là, cette application-là, nous l'avons créée ensemble la semaine dernière et nous avons pu voir que en haut à gauche, c'est là où on a vraiment le résumé de toutes les informations qui sont utiles, notamment le bouton soumission qui sera actif lorsque on aura complété les 9 tâches que nous avons vues à droite. Mais surtout, comme le disait Andrea tantôt, il faudrait s'assurer de rajouter ici tous les collaborateurs pertinents qui vont aider à la rédaction de la proposition au niveau du bureau, au niveau du pays, et aussi de rajouter Andrea, Abdraman et moi-même pour qu'on puisse accompagner la révision étape par étape de ce processus d'application. Nous avons parlé d'étape par étape parce que nous avons vu les 9 tâches qui sont à droite et nous avons pratiquement 6 parties principales partant de la partie A à la partie F que nous devons remplir. Et nous avons souligné également que c'est comme dans un buffet. On peut choisir de commencer par la partie A, sauter et aller à la partie C, revenir à la partie B, ainsi de suite, mais en gardant en mémoire que toutes ces parties sont liées et qu'il faudrait pouvoir drafter une proposition cohérente avec le problème que nous avons pu identifier. Pour revenir rapidement, nous avons également présenté les différentes icônes que nous pouvons voir là. Lorsqu'une tâche est complétée, nous avons cette icône sur laquelle il y a la souris qui montre que oui, la tâche est complétée. Lorsqu'une tâche est en cours, lorsqu'on a commencé mais elle n'est pas encore complétée, nous avons ce vert à moitié, dans la moitié, une moitié de lune, donc vert à moitié plein, qui nous montre que la tâche a débuté, mais il faudrait compléter les informations. Et bien sûr, nous avons ce cercle qui n'est pas encore rempli, qui est un vert totalement vide, qui prouve que la tâche n'a pas du tout débuté. Donc, cela nous donne un aperçu un peu de l'état du développement des propositions que nous avons. Et une fois de plus, nous avons pu souligner et nous insistons sur le fait qu'il faut mettre comme éditeur sur la plateforme seulement les personnes, quelques personnes clés qui ne vont pas venir, on va dire, supprimer par inadvertance les différentes modifications qui sont déjà faites, surtout si ce sont les informations finales. Donc, pour cela, au niveau de la gauche des collaborateurs, lorsqu'on veut rajouter un collaborateur, il y a 2 niveaux de droit. Il y a un droit qui permet de voir seulement, donc pour la lecture, la révision, c'est un autre droit. Et il y a un autre droit qui permet de voir et d'éditer. Donc, en fonction des personnes que vous voulez inviter, il faudrait pouvoir définir le type de droit auquel vous voulez associer ces profils-là. Donc, pour inviter une personne, on va le redire. Donc, c'est simplement l'adresse email qu'il faut pouvoir mettre. Donc, par exemple, Aya, et vous mettez l'adresse email. Tout simplement, vous envoyez l'invitation avec ou sans message, un message qui est facultatif. Donc, lorsque vous envoyez l'invitation, la personne sera notifiée du fait que elle a été invitée à participer soit à la lecture, soit à la revue de la proposition. Une fois que la personne aura accepté, son profil va basculer. Là, vous voyez, il n'y a pas de miniature. On pourra voir la miniature avec ses initiales, ce qui montrera que la personne a créé un compte et aussi la personne a pu rejoindre l'application avec succès. Donc, voilà de façon ramassée ce on a vu la fois dernière. Pour entrer un peu plus dans la partie A, nous avons pu voir comment est-ce que on doit pouvoir mettre en place les objectifs euh, globaux et surtout ce que le projet vise. Ce que le projet vise et la dernière partie étant naturellement la présentation synthétique de la théorie du changement pour pouvoir démontrer quel est le problème et quelles sont les actions et surtout les produits que que nous attendons à délivrer à la fin de notre intervention pour atteindre les objectifs que nous allons fixer. Donc, c'est un peu cela le cadre de la partie A qui présente en réalité cette théorie du changement qui maintenant devra pouvoir être explicitée par les parties B que nous allons voir tantôt, qui présentent notamment le contexte général, les différentes évaluations. Et mon collègue Abdi va revenir dessus en détail. Nous allons pouvoir échanger au cas par cas. Si vous avez des questions, comment est-ce que cela peut être mis ensemble pour pouvoir présenter un contexte et une évaluation initiale qui soit en corrélation avec la théorie du changement, avec le problème identifié et les activités qui ont été déjà présentées dans la partie A. Donc, je vais m'arrêter là et je vais passer la parole et la présentation à Abdi qui va nous faire l'économie de la partie B et en rappelant que c'est une session interactive, donc on peut s'interrompre à tout moment, discuter, échanger et apporter des éclaircissements, en particulier en rapport avec un, un aspect qui nécessite peut-être qu'on s'appesantisse un peu plus. So, Abdi?
Merci beaucoup, Cédric, et bonjour, bonsoir, chers collègues, où que vous soyez dans le monde. Bienvenue dans cette session. Bon, moi, je vais changer de langue, je vais parler en anglais. Cédric, je voudrais suggérer, sorry, I wanted to suggest, since there are some questions already in the chat, that we answer those questions before we go into part B. So one of the questions I'm seeing in the chat is whether for multi-country proposals, if every country has to create an account. Do you have that? And then we have a hand raised from Lamine Fofana.
OK. Merci pour cette question. Non, on va faire totalement, non, pour les propositions multi-pays, chaque pays ne doit pas créer son compte parce que ces soumissions-là seront gérées ou sont gérées par l'OMS, à l'occurrence, si on est à partir d'implémentation par l'OMS et Africa CDC à travers la plateforme JIP, qui est une plateforme de collaboration qui s'occupe vraiment de mettre sur pied la rédaction et la mise en conformité de ces propositions. Donc, on va juste prendre les inputs des pays, mais il y a une seule proposition qui sera faite au nom de tous ces pays-là qui ont décidé de rejoindre une proposition multi-pays et qui sera coordonnée par le bureau régional de l'OMS. Donc, vous n'avez pas à créer de compte par rapport à ces propositions en particulier. Yes, Lamine? You have the floor. I can see your hand. Lamine, je peux voir votre main levée. Vous pouvez prendre la parole. Et après, ce sera Christopher. Christopher, vous pouvez prendre la parole en attendant peut-être que Lamine active son micro. Christopher?
Yeah, so I want to find out for multi-country proposals, does every country have to create an account and work separately, or has to be coordinated at the regional level? Over.
Yeah, thank you, Christopher, for your question. I was just saying that for multi-country proposals, we don't need to create a single account at country level because we have one application that is created at the regional level. So you will just be required to provide technical input, and the application will be created by under the JEEP, which is the Joint Emergency Platform between WHO and Africa CDC. Do we have another question? I'm muted? No, I don't think so. Can you hear me, Abdi?
I can hear you.
Yeah, because I see the comment on the chat.
Sorry, I think if Cedric is speaking, he's muted. I can't hear from here.
I can hear Cedric. Okay, I see in the chat that others can hear him as well.
Yeah, we can hear him very well and clear.
Yeah, Christopher, maybe I will type my answer on the chat so that you'll be able to read, no problem. So Fofana? No. Okay, Abdi, please, you can move on, and then you will see how to address Fofana's question if he decide to come in later. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so let me just share my screen. Okay, can you all see my screen? So just for pedagogical purposes, I will log out and log in again so that you can follow the steps. As Cedric was saying, if you're not already registered, you can click here to register. Since I'm already registered, I'm just going to log in. And now after I log in, I'll be able to select the application that I'm working on, which for training purposes is application number 45. So on this, I will just click continue. Okay, and this gives me access to the different parts of the proposal. So as Cedric was saying, last week, we covered the this first part here. We covered the summary information was included in it, and we covered mostly part A. Today, we are going to focus on part B. So I will click on part B. Okay, so part B, this is sort of what it looks like, focuses on the rationale for the proposal, the demonstrated needs, and the alignment with national and regional priorities. If you are sort of work in the traditional typical proposals, this is the part where you will be doing the justification of your project. And in terms of part B, it starts with the context section where you sort of describe the country's hazards, vulnerabilities, the epidemiological context, and to justify the request for funding. And this part needs to be multi-sectoral. It needs to include One Health and community perspectives, and yeah, the exposures to epidemic and pandemic hazards. It's in this part where it's really important to build on the different assessments that have been conducted in the country and the outcomes of those assessments. As you know, the Pandemic Fund is a catalytic investment trying to build on investments that have been made before. So this is the part where you will be really pulling out the gaps that have been highlighted in your joint external evaluations that then were used to inform your national public health action plans. You will also be drawing from if you've had outbreaks in the country, etc., or other types of public health emergencies. Here, you will be drawing on the recommendations from the after action reviews, the recommendations from the intra-action reviews. I think it's also important because we've been talking about One Health. So the sort of performance of veterinary services assessments, gap assessments that have been done, and the national how do you call it, bridge gap workshops that have been conducted. So this is really the part to show the need for your project, building on the evidence that has been generated over the past few years. So after you complete this part, you will see that every part has a word limit. This part is only 3,500. And we have seen that when people start on this, without looking at the character limit, it's not even a word limit, it's a character limit, they go and generate the 20 pages of assessments when at the end, all what is needed is 3,500 characters. So this is something that can be done very easily. Yeah, but it needs to build on what already exists. I see that Lamin's hand is still up, but I will keep going with the assumption that it's an old hand, but feel free to stop me anytime. And Cedric will be monitoring the hand, Cedric and Aya, and they will let me know if I need to pause. So now I'll go to the subsection of table 3. This part is very important, and there's been a lot of updates to it in this third round application form. So this is the part where you will need to upload all those assessments that I've been talking about. So this year, the Pandemic Fund made it easier and listed the different assessments so that you know exactly where to attach what. It's a drop-down menu. You can add as many as you want. And then, so basically, you will select the type of assessment, if it's an after action review, an early action review, an intra-action review, a joint external evaluation, or other types of assessment. You can even attach reports from your simulation exercises, because all those serve to generate sort of recommendations on how to address the gaps. So you will select the assessment, and you will select the country that it's from. All the countries have been listed, the year, and you add any additional information. You will be able to, you will see here in part F. Part F is where you will be attaching all the physical documents. So you will be able to attach the physical document in part F. It's really important when you select a document here that you are able to attach it in part F. So that is sort of like the in terms of the context section, the context and demonstrated needs. That's sort of what is needed. There is this year there've been the Pandemic Fund made it clear that all documents you will see here, documents should be uploaded in English. So if you are a French-speaking country or a Portuguese-speaking country and your document is available in other languages, you can generate a summary in English and to attach that along with the version in the original language. Internally at WHO, we are currently discussing ways to enable countries to do this, by developing these summaries, and we will be sharing information with you soon, so that the summaries, because many countries will be, some countries are single countries, some countries are in multi-country proposals, and it will be good that the summaries that are uploaded, let's say if you're a Portuguese speaking country and you're doing single country and multi-country, that the summaries are the same and they're not sort of significantly different. Yeah, so I'll move from here, and please feel free to pause at any time, post your questions in the chat, and I'll go to the next part of of this section. I think in very few cases, this criteria does not apply, that there are no assessments. But if there are no assessments, you have instructions provided as well. You can just describe any plans or assessments that you plan to do in the future, including over the course of the project. So if there are no assessments that can be attached or included, you can include in these, how do you call it, spaces, for your plans for the future. So for the next 3 years, that is. I heard someone going off mute, so I will pause there and see if that was a question or just.
Thank you, Abdi. Yeah, we have some few questions on the chat. Do you want to take them?
Yes.
Yeah. So we have Nelly, who is asking the following: can document in draft form be used? For instance, BVS report.
Yeah, I
This
think
is-
it will be, it's generally recommended to upload final versions. But then there is an option to include to add comments. So if you add a draft, because let's say you are near finalization but it has not yet been finalized, you can add a comment here, yeah, to say that this is a draft, and maybe include information on when it will be finalized. I also want to mention that later on, the Pandemic Fund will give each application an opportunity to resubmit additional documentation. So if you have a draft, you can attach that with a comment, and then later on, you will be able to share with the Secretariat the final version.
Yeah, thank you. We finally have the question from Lamin. He is asking, can we use the GEE 2024 report, which is not published by WHO?
Yeah, I think this is similar to the previous question. I mean, I want to say that I think in the spirit of having these documents is not just for having them as attachment, is for them to serve as tools to identify the gaps at country level and develop solutions around that in the proposals. I think draft documents can be attached with a note, and when the official document becomes available during the application process, that can be shared. But I do remember that last year we did share, a number of draft documents, including national public action NAPs that were not yet finalized.
Yeah, thank you. So I think the last one is from my friend Didier. So Didier is asking, notre rapport GIE est en français. Le résumé doit être rajouté sur la ligne suivante ou la même ligne. So if...
No, je pense que, so sorry, I wanted to speak, change languages. That would be confusing. In terms of where to include the summary, I think it will be good to try to include the summary as is possible, sometimes to merge documents in PDF, to have a summary and that is then followed by the original language, the document in its original language. And if that's not possible, you can select the JEE, and you add a comment to say that this is the original language, and you select JEE, and you add the summary in English and say that this is the summary.
Yeah, perfect. I think for the moment that's all. We can proceed. Colleagues, don't hesitate to keep asking questions. You can still type your question or maybe raise your hand to have this session be the more interactive possible. Yeah, Abdi, we can move on, please.
Okay, great. So I was saying that if you do not have some of the assessment documents and you have plans for them, you can indicate those plans here, but in no less than 3,500 characters. In terms of your IHR evaluations or your PVS assessments, you can also include the expected the time frame for those activities. Now I'll move to the section around challenges and gaps. And as I was saying, from the participating in the last two rounds, you sort of see that there are some sections that really need to be condensed. So when you're doing your context analysis, in terms of the challenges and gaps, it's actually just 500 words. And as I was saying, it also needs to build on the evaluations and the assessment, but this part focuses mainly on the challenges and the gaps, while the previous part is the overall context and the demonstrated needs. I think here in this section, what I want to add is that it's very important for these challenges and these gaps to be directly linked to the objectives that you will set under each thematic area and the activities that you will be proposing as solutions to tackle these gaps. And this is particularly important because, as we have seen previously, you need to have a theory of change, and then later on you will see that the Pandemic Fund puts a strong emphasis on the logical connection between the different sections of your proposal. But this, I was gonna say again, in terms of this is what I call these are quick wins in terms of the proposal development process. If you are struggling, let's say, for instance, to create your committee that will be developing the proposal, etc. This is one of the parts where you can make progress while that coordination process is being set up. And when things are in place, it will just be a matter of review and enriching it, because it's just 500 words or 3,500 characters. And the same for the previous section. I'm repeating this just to demystify a little bit these sections of the proposal form. So next, in terms of part B, you will need to demonstrate alignment with national plans. But I think this part is easier when you have done your context and needs demonstration section well, and you have also clearly outlined your gaps and challenges. It mainly consists in how do you call it? Filling out the table below with the national plans that have been prepared or updated in the last 6 years. So in this part is a bit particular because you cannot attach anything that is older than 6 years. Here as well, the Pandemic Fund has made it super easy this year. There is a drop-down list where you can attach your national action plan for public health security. You can attach your One Health plan or other national plans that you have. For instance, some countries have how do you call it? Public health sector and economic development plans, things that are linked to the public health sector, or maybe there are some other sort of emergency specific plans that are relevant for what you are proposing. But it's mainly these two, and I think most countries have a version of a NAPS that is, less than 5 years old. So that's mainly what you need to do. And if you don't have a national action, a NAPS or a One Health plan, there should be a time frame where those will be delivered. So similar to the section above, you will just need to include here that time frame. And so now after you have attached how do you call it, those plans, in this section you need to identify the priorities of your proposal and how they're aligned with the relevant priorities of the national plan and the national strategic directions and frameworks. I think this part is particularly important because it will set the tone for how you are going to frame your objectives under each of the three thematic areas: workforce, surveillance, and early warning, and laboratory. So I think you will see that all of this builds on one another. You go from JEE and the different assessments that have been conducted, and you come to gaps assessment, and in terms of solutions being proposed, etc., you draw from your NAPS to ensure that everything is interconnected. And in part B8, this is where the activities of other partners come in. Other partners on the ground who are also working in synergy with the national the national party. And here, this will be the opportunity to include the activities of partners on the ground who are doing things that are complementary with the stated priorities here. For instance, if you are proposing something related to community engagement, this will, or cross-border efforts, this will be the area to highlight the activities of UNICEF, IFRC, IAM, and all the other partners who work on those areas. We are nearly at the end of part B. As you will see, part B is just framing your proposal and make sure that that framing is really tight and straight and straightforward. In terms of the last part, you will indicate if this is if the country has been awarded a pandemic fund grant, either in the first, mainly for multi-country, because if you're a single country and you submit another single country, you're wasting your time. You are not eligible. But if for multi-country, it's the part to indicate whether the country has been awarded a single country grant or another multi-country country grant. Last but not least, I think for multi-country proposals in particular, if that's what you're working on, and one of the countries is already a recipient of a pandemic fund award, this is where you will need to indicate how an additional investment sort of complement the investment that has already been made by the pandemic fund. In many cases, I think there is a strong rationale. So you need to show how this additional investment will complement the existing ones. After you're done with that, you can either save and continue editing, or you can mark it as complete. If you mark it as complete, it will be closed. If you save and continue, you can come back to it without having to reopen the section. So this is what is included in part B. As you will see, it's very short in terms of actual text that you will be writing. I think it's not more than 1,500 words, if I'm not mistaken. And maybe the most important part here, where I feel countries need to sort of be doing a little bit of work, is the generation of these summaries. But as I said, WHO is working on a solution, and yeah, feel free to reach out if you need guidance on the translation of those, on the generation of those different those different summaries, because I think translating whole plans to other languages is a whole other task that require more effort. I will pause here and sort of go back to the main conversation, and feel free to ask any questions you have, anything that is not clear, either on this part or part A, or any other aspects of the pandemic fund application process.
Thank you very much, Abdi, for this presentation. We have some few questions from colleagues, but I don't know. I will start with Christopher, because when he was typing his question, you have added some relevant and, for me, compelling information. So I don't know if what you said was enough for him, because he was saying that he didn't understand the explanation given at the beginning. I wanted to know what are the gaps and challenges related to. So, Christopher, do you still need an answer, or what Abdi said just after your question was enough to give an answer to this? You can take the floor. No, maybe Abdi, do you want to highlight again how gaps and challenges are related to this background that need to be drafted to frame the whole proposal aligned with the theory of change?
Sorry, can you repeat the question? And I also see that someone is sharing their screen. I'm just gonna
So sorry. I don't know who is sharing screen.
okay.
Okay.
Yeah, so I mean, yeah, I can answer the question, Cedric, about the theory of change and how it's related to these gaps and demonstrated needs. I think, yeah, so in terms of the theory of change, it is more like the final picture of the conversations around what key challenges will this proposal try to solve. Let's say, for instance, that you, in terms of workforce, the country has a specific issue with retention let's say, of emergency responders, and you need to, you want to solve that specific challenge. In your theory of change, you will develop activities and outputs and outcomes that are sort of aligned with that specific objectives. But of course, the specific issues or gaps or challenges that you want to solve will need to be drawn from the different assessments that have been conducted, and they need to align with the national priorities. So it's funny that the Pandemic Fund put the theory of change in, how do you call it, part A, but it really belongs more to the end of the of the process. I think the reason is, and Cedric mentioned this last time, that is one of the key documents that the technical advisory committee looks at for them to understand what is the change that this country is trying to make. That's why it's at the forefront, but it's something that can definitely be developed later as you have a better agreement on your challenges and the sort of objectives and specific activities you want to conduct.
Yeah, thank you, Abdi. I can see that we have I wanted to say a lot of, but a couple of questions on this theory of change. I just wanted to say that one of the reasons why you need to add us as reviewers and editors for your application is because when we have like your application, we know exactly which proposal you want to push for this round. We are able to provide like key insight of if the theory of change is aligned with let's say the background. Specifically, we will look at activities and see how those activities, if they are really linked to the outcomes. I mean, outcomes, they are short and midterm changes we are expecting, and also how those outcomes are linked to output, output being like direct results. So knowing all the evaluation, all the background and the main challenges you want to solve, we will be able to see if the activity plan are aligned with all those steps, and also to see which input you decided to underline, to highlight for this specific project. So please, one more time, don't hesitate to add us as reviewers in your proposal. We will be able to provide very specific feedback to each application, knowing that the first part, the part A, had this theory of change. So if you start working on part A, we'll be able to provide specific feedback on part A that will allow you to move forward on part B, on part C, and see how this application can be stronger. So maybe we will take another question, but it was not a question, it was just a comment from Clara. Clara from Senegal. She, of course, I mean, this is a comment, so we can still read it later. It's not a question. So colleagues, if you have, okay, this is another question related to the theory of change from Lamin. So
yeah, I think, Cedric, there seems to be a need to have a more targeted session around the development of these theories of change. And I mean, there are many schools of thought on how to develop a theory of change, and we can sort of navigate through that and share sample versions. Yeah, so I see two questions in the Q&A. One is asking for countries that have older JEEs, like 7 years, would you still encourage them to use that? Yeah, I think maybe I can go back to my screen to show, in terms of the documents that need to be attached, the 6-year comment doesn't apply to things like JEE, etc., because those have a specific time frame and there are longer processes. It applies more to the national public health, the national documents, because those are generally renewed in a frequency that is less than 6 years. If, for instance, a country is working with a NAPS that is 6 years old, it's most likely the case that they're working on a new one. So that's what that comment, that specific requirement refers to. Yeah, so I think someone also asked in terms of the evidence, that they're asking whether they can refer to SPAR, especially if the evidence from the JEE is old. The JEE is from 2016. Yeah, in term when describing the need and also even talking about the gaps and challenges, the statistics from the SPAR are very relevant and should be used. As you will see later on, in terms of the pandemic funds M&E framework, the SPAR indicators are heavily relied upon because it's a good frequency, and yeah, the data is sort of available. Yeah, I hope that answers those two questions that were put in the chat.
Yeah, definitely. I just wanted to take another question from Petrus. He was asking what format should we be using when sending the different parts for your review. So, Petrus, just add our names, our emails on the application platform. We'll be able to review the draft. When you advance on part E, we are able to provide a review on part E, So just add our emails on the application platform. We'll be able to see which parts you are completing and how we can provide comment on this part specifically. That's the reason why we should be added as reviewers and editors for every single application if you need a review for this application. Okay, you want emails again, Lamin? So yes, we have shared. Okay, you have the email on the chat for so we have Andrea, Abdi, and me. You have the email. Just add those email, and then you will receive the invitation. Thank you. Another question?
Yeah, I also want to invite our other technical colleagues who have recommendations or comments related to this gap assessment and the development of the context section to comment. I see many names who know more about JEE and NAPS and SPAR than I do. So feel free to chime in. Okay, I see 128 people on the call. This means that everything we have shared so far about part A, part B, how to access the different application tools are clear.
Me, I wanted to ask Abdi to our colleagues because it is easier when we are presenting if you can access the application portal at the same time. I was asking if you are able to access this application portal right now, and if you can maybe see if you have any additional question or any main issue accessing the portal. Alors, il y a une question de tool là. So it might be too early to say, but we include delivery partner and can they still submit regional? Okay. Do you see the question, Abdi? You want me to
Yes,
read
I
it?
see the
Yeah.
question, and yeah, and I see that a number of people are asking if they can have access to the recording. Definitely, yes, the recording should be shared with you right after the session. You should have access to the link. And it's not in terms of, I'll answer the colleague who asked the question about the inclusion of delivery partners in the regional, in the multi-country proposals. actually for delivery partners and for implementing partners, there is no limit to the number of proposals you can be a part of. And there is also no limit on the type of proposals that you can be a part of. So as a delivery partner, you can be a part of regional entity proposal, you can be a part of single country proposal, and you can also be a part of multi-country proposal. There is a second question from our colleague from IAM about if ministry institutions, if they can be considered as delivery partners. Yes, specific agencies or branches of the government can be considered delivery partners, meaning that they are responsible for the execution of that activity. And yes, and in fact, governments are the end beneficiaries of pandemic fund grants. It's countries who are eligible to apply. So yeah, and it is good to clarify the name of the specific institution, etc., in your proposals. I see a third. Okay, our colleague Miriam has shared her contact about human and animal mobility related initiatives. So feel free to reach out to her. Yeah, and there is another question from our colleague Donald on whether delivery partners should be included in the writing process. I think for the writing process, we will say that all help is needed, especially if a delivery partner has, strong proposal writers, etc. That would actually be, good for the proposal. So in terms of the proposal writing, there is no limit as to who can write the content. I think probably at country level, it's more the case that they're looking for people who can be pen holders in terms of the proposal writing.
Oui, Abdi, je voulais rajouter un élément sur la question de Donald et pour souligner même d'ailleurs que le secrétariat du Fonds pandémie recommande fortement la participation justement de toutes les entités, tous les delivery partners, notamment tout ce qui est ONG et CSOs, et demande d'ailleurs très souvent les preuves de participation parce qu'il y a un problème de co-création. On veut se rassurer que dans ce qui a été mis en termes d'activité, que les besoins spécifiques et les stratégies de terrain soient prises en compte et que ce ne soit pas 2-3 personnes qui se soient assises dans un bureau pour rédiger la proposition. Donc, des éléments qui doivent être très souvent pris en compte, comme je le disais tantôt. Il faut des comptes rendus de séances de travail, si possible avec des fiches de présence signées et des photos de ces séances de travail-là pour attester, témoigner de la participation de toutes ces entités. Parce qu'on a eu pour plusieurs propositions, plus tard, 2 mois plus tard, le secrétariat du moins de Technical Advisory Panel qui revenait demander quelles sont les preuves que les ONG ont été impliquées, les organisations de la société civile, les organisations à la base religieuse, en fonction du contexte, ont été impliquées dans la rédaction de la proposition, et avoir ces éléments-là qui vont rentrer les annexes permet de pouvoir témoigner de ce processus inclusif de co-création. Donc, c'est vraiment très important, comme l'a dit Abdi tout à l'heure, de ne pas se priver d'une main participatrice qui pourrait permettre d'avoir une proposition qui reflète les besoins du pays dans les différents axes que nous comptons déployer. So we have an additional question from Immaculate. Abdi, can we have the right template? Okay, so, okay. Already you have the link for budgeting.
Yeah. So I shared in the chat, and thank you, colleagues, for asking your questions. This is what these sessions are for. I shared in the chat the link where you can download all the application documents. And these are not documents that, are stored by WHO. This is directly from the source, from the Pandemic Fund itself. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out.
Et je tiens à rappeler également, parce qu'il y a des collègues qui m'ont écrit un message direct, peut-être d'autres auraient le même souci. Pour les collègues d'expression, du moins pour les pays francophones et les pays lusophones, bien que ce ne soit pas encore disponible dans le site officiel du Fonds pandémique qui a été partagé là par Abdi, nous avons les modèles d'application dans les templates hors ligne, traduits déjà en français et en portugais, qui vont nous permettre de prendre en main plus facilement le template d'application partie par partie. Donc, ces documents-là sont déjà mis à disposition et on va également partager le lien dans ce chat pour pouvoir télécharger les versions anglaises oui, françaises et portugaises de ces modèles d'application hors ligne qui vont nous permettre de travailler de façon beaucoup plus inclusive, quitte à faire une traduction à la fin pour pouvoir assurer la soumission selon les critères du Fonds pandémique qui veut tous les documents désormais en anglais. Et le commentaire de Clara, il a été bien pris en compte et nous allons mener les actions diligentes pour pouvoir faire ce plaidoyer parce qu'effectivement, avoir des documents exclusivement en anglais rajoute du temps de travail et puis pourrait rajouter une semaine juste de traduction pour des pays d'expression française ou lusophone ou encore qui parlent espagnol. Et il faudrait pouvoir faire en sorte que ce processus soit le plus inclusif possible. Donc, ce plaidoyer doit être mené auprès du secrétariat pour pouvoir faciliter l'accessibilité de cette soumission et des soumissions à venir. So, yeah, Abdi?
Yeah, no, je pense qu'il y a aussi beaucoup de collègues qui demandent si on peut partager les présentations passées, si on peut partager l'enregistrement. Les présentations passées, je vais les partager par email. Et pour l'enregistrement, je pense c'est une fonctionnalité de Zoom où vous devrez l'avoir automatiquement après la fin de l'appel. Si vous ne l'avez pas, faites-nous signe.
Donc, je pense que le principal est couvert. Abdi, si la partie B est terminée, on va peut-être faire le récap en attendant d'autres questions. Naturellement, les lignes restent ouvertes, même après les cliniques, pour pouvoir répondre à des questions spécifiques lorsque vous êtes en pleine rédaction. Naturellement, les points focaux OMS au niveau du bureau pays sont bien placés pour fournir toutes les précisions utiles et nécessaires et on travaille ensemble également pour pouvoir mettre en avant des propositions multi-pays. Donc, vous pourrez vous adresser aux collègues du bureau régional pour qu'on puisse solutionner quelques éléments de cadrage utiles, le cas échéant.
D'accord. Merci Cédric. Je pense qu'on va, vu qu'il n'y a plus de questions, I'm gonna switch to English. Talk about what we will be covering next week and what we suggest you do in the meantime. After that, I will pass it to Andrea to close. So in terms of, just give me 1 second to share my screen.
So before you start presenting this, Abdi, Danielle was asking. Yes, so she already has the answer from Andrea. She was asking if she can start the draft in the system. Yes, you can use the template offline. So exactly the same information you will be having there. So yeah, please go on, Abdi.
Okay, great. So let me just go to the right slide. So basically today we covered the context, demonstrated needs, the alignment with national and regional priorities, the key documents that you need to upload, and what the changes are from what are the changes that the pandemic fund made from round 2 to this round 3. In terms of what we are asking you to do before the next the next session, again, is to create your own account if you haven't, especially if you know that you will be taking part in the application process, to connect with your national governments to sort of create that one submission account and invite all collaborators, including Cedric, myself, and Andrea, and to set up a coordination group to begin working on part A and part B. We covered part A last time, and now we're covering part B. So next session will focus on will be session 3, where we'll be talking about co-financing, co-investment, and the overall available funding. This part is key because it's usually the trickiest one. It's the one where there are a number of definitions that are important to understand. And if I'm not mistaken, it's also one of the areas where the pandemic fund has made a few changes compared to round 2 that we all need to understand. So with that being said, I will pass the floor back to Andrea. And if you have any questions in the meantime, feel free to type in the chat or raise your hand. Andrea, back to you.
Thank you very much, Abdi. And, félicitations à toi, vraiment, Cédric, pour toute la présentation qui, je pense, a été très instructif pour tous les collègues qui se sont connectés depuis les différents pays de la région africaine. Vraiment, on a couvert aujourd'hui un domaine très important. Il faut se rappeler, comme les collègues ils ont dit, que vraiment, il faut aligner l'analyse du contexte et tout ce qui est nos analyses de besoins au niveau et stratégie au niveau national au contenu de la proposition, parce que ça, c'est quelque chose, la cohérence de la proposition et des objectifs proposés, comme on a vu, c'est vraiment une partie importante de l'application en ligne. Maintenant, pour conclure, on vous a partagé les outils. Encore une fois, on attend de votre côté que vous allez commencer à opérer dans la plateforme. Comme ça, il y aura plus de questions aussi qui seront, que vous allez poser parce que vous allez bien sûr avoir des doutes, des questions, comment remplir. Vous allez vous rappeler de quelque chose qu'on a fait dans la présentation, mais pas de toutes choses. Donc, on attend depuis vous que vous créez les propositions. On attend depuis le bureau de l'OMS aussi qu'ils puissent nous informer au cas où leur pays a l'intention de soumettre une proposition. Comme ça, on peut continuer à mapper ce qui sont les différentes propositions qui sont développées dans la région et être prêt à donner notre soutien. Dernier mot, c'est encore pour vous remercier, dire qu'on est ici disponible, même pendant la semaine, ce n'est pas seulement les jeudis où on sera disponible. Donc, comme la prochaine fois, comme Abdi a dit, on parle de cofinancement et co-investissement, et c'est des domaines très techniques. Il y a chaque année beaucoup de questions sur ces choses. Si vous avez déjà des questions, il faut les poser maintenant. Vous avez nos emails, vous pouvez nous écrire. C'est bien de recevoir ces questions avant la session de la clinique la semaine prochaine. Comme ça, on peut utiliser la réponse qu'on va donner à chacun pour tout le monde. Je suis sûr que de cette manière, on peut tous apprendre et avoir plus de clarification. j'ai dit au niveau de... OK, je vois qu'il y a une question pour terminer. C'est bien que je rappelle ça. Est-ce qu'on doit soumettre une expression d'intérêt pour soumettre la proposition? Non, mais il faut que vous communiquiez à nous l'intention du pays de soumettre une proposition. Ça, c'est pour les propositions pays. Donc, comme ça, nous, on peut déployer notre soutien et dédier voilà, notre temps au soutien pour finaliser cette proposition. Donc, ça, c'était vraiment pour la clôture. On a eu une bonne heure et demie de clinique. Vous allez accéder encore une fois à tout matériau. Merci aux deux facilitateurs et aux coordinateurs de clinique Abdi pour l'organisation de cette séance. Je vous remercie et je vous souhaite une bonne fin de semaine. On se voit la semaine prochaine pendant la clinique. Merci beaucoup.
Merci.
Merci.
OK, merci, chers collègues. À la semaine prochaine.
À la semaine prochaine. Bye bye. Merci.
Bye bye.
Merci à vous.